Call to order the September meeting for Tonganoxie USD 464. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I would move that we approve the agenda with the exception of removing presentation 4.1. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 7-0. All right, we will move into the R&R portion of our meeting tonight. So we've allocated 10 minutes for this. I just would make a few comments for the public record, then we can open it up for any public comment. So I think first and foremost, just to state kind of where we are from the mill levy and budget perspective. So the district's currently proposing a mill levy of 59.772, which is basically flat, down just ever so slightly over last year's mill levy of 59.848. So we're down 0.076. It is 2.6% above our revenue neutral rate. The mill levy has come down each year since 2021, 2022, and in that time the mill levy is down 2.618 again over those years. Part of the reason it's come down that much is because we're able to positively impact our bond and interest portion of the mill levy. It's probably unlikely that will continue. I think I speak on behalf of the board and certainly the administration to say that the board and the administration understand the pressure that taxes place on families, and that the board and the administration have worked hard to keep spending in check and manage the mill levy, and we will continue to do that going forward. We are in an inflationary environment. We have been able to make significant progress on teacher salaries the last 2 years, but since 21 through today, the CPI has been up 7%, 6%. It'll be up over 3% this year. Additionally, SPED is still not fully funded, so we've spent down cash balances considerably the last 2 years to be able to fully fund SPED. I think lastly, I would say that there were 2 districts in Leavenworth County that were able to be revenue neutral. All other cities and schools were not able to be. So Tonganoxie again was 2.6% above our revenue neutral rate. At the same time, valuations were up 3.4%. So we're actually, the budget is actually up less than the valuations are as a percentage. And Tonganoxie was the lowest taxing entity among schools and cities that were not revenue neutral. So while we are not revenue neutral, we there are no schools that are closer to being revenue neutral than us, except for the 2 that are. Some of the schools and cities are well beyond revenue neutral, several being anywhere from over 10% to over 33% above their revenue neutral rates. So say all that to say that the board and the administration certainly are cognizant of spending and the pressure it places on families, and would open it up to public comment for 2 minutes each if there's anyone that would like to give a comment.
Question for you. Hi, I'm Mike Doyle, 21848 187th Street, Tonganoxie. So I am a resident,
Great.
and I care. So I'm looking at your little chart here, bottom right-hand corner, amount per pupil by function. It seems to go from $16,000 to $20,000, a $4,000 increase in just 1 year. Am I reading that right?
I'm not sure what you're looking at. This is really an opportunity for you to speak to us. We're not going to have a back and forth, but love to hear your comments.
Well, okay. So you talked about the inflation. I'll make 2 points. One, talk about inflation very briefly because you already hit on it. Inflation is at 17 to 23%, depending on whether you include energy and certain food types. I know the federal government likes to downplay it, but we know it's really bad. While at the same time, median incomes, household incomes in Leavenworth County only rose 1.2% since 2000. Everyone in this room has seen a significant decrease in their quality of living. The bottom line is that all the residents have taken a major hit. We don't need you guys piling on. It's enough on the inflation. Existing excessively high property taxes. Leavenworth County has the 4th highest property taxes in the state. And remember that across the entire United States of America, Kansas has the 15th highest property taxes. The combined effect is to make all Leavenworth County residents poor. Don't need you guys piling on. Property taxes in Leavenworth County have increased 337% since 2000, with only a 17% increase in population. Now think about that. 337% increase in property taxes, 17% increase in population. Not making a lot of sense. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I think we have to let the time expire before we move past this part of the agenda, do we not?
I believe we do.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see
To
if anyone
16,
else.
yeah.
Okay.
Justin, the agenda does have a vote before.
Mhm.
I know.
Yeah,
I'll
we
just
just-
give it one more minute.
Yep, yep, we just said that. Thanks.
All right, if there's no further public comment, we would move to item 2.2, which is the approval of a resolution to exceed the revenue neutral rate by the 2.6%, as I mentioned earlier. The resolution reads, be it resolved that USD 464 during the 2024-2025 budget year will levy property taxes exceeding the revenue neutral tax rates calculated for 2024-2025 as adjusted pursuant to KSA 79-2988 is hereby adopted. There will be a roll call vote, so I will start with yes. Mr. Bruni?
Yes.
Do we need a second on that motion,
I
or?
don't know if it's a motion. We'll take a second. Is there a second on that?
I'll second it.
All right. I'll vote yes. Mr. Bruni?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
All right, this passes 7-0. All right, so we will adjourn the revenue neutral hearing and go into the budget hearing, which is somewhat duplicative. I won't restate my points, but they're kind of the same thing and can open it to the public if there's any commentary on the budget. Okay, we will move into presentations and adjourn those hearings. So presentation 4.2, Brandy.
Hello, everyone.
Sure.
Yep.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. Today, I am just kind of going to update you on what's been going on with the School Improvement Services Department. Thank you, Mr. Feldkamp. I sent these things out in the board agenda, but these are hard copies in case you guys want to hold them in your hands. These are two pieces that are kind of guiding the work from the School Improvement Services Department. The first is folded like a trifold. That is what I'm going to spend a good chunk of my time talking about today. This is based, though, on not just the needs of the district, but also the input from and guidance from KSDE, which is the very colorful sheet that you see as well. And I'll touch on that in a moment. What you have in front of you is what every single member of this school district received on the very, very first day when we returned back. And it was just a way to really put into everyone's hands exactly what we are all about at the School Improvement Services Department, where we are talking about what we think we need to be going forward with, the emphasis on these different areas, and then the reasoning behind it, the what, the why, and the how, really spelling it out straightforward for everyone. The reason this is my own personal feeling is it is not obvious. If it's not obvious, it's not a thing. I want everyone to know that the decisions that we are making are coming at us from our needs assessments, as well as discussions with admin and teachers, and surveys from teachers. And then this is kind of that product that we started this year with. So on the very first column, if you'll look at the middle column, it's the larger of all of those. And that was what I was tasked with when I was first hired here. And it is to increase rigor and achievement for USD 464. In order to do that, we have a lot of things going on right now. Specifically, we are working at all three tiers. So tier 1 is whole class instruction, as well as tier 2, which is those small groups interventions. And then that tier 3, which is that really intensive, sometimes small, but it's 1 to 3 students per an adult. And so we are really working to make sure that every single moment of a student's day is looked at as a time for engagement and a time where you are on task with the assignment that you have in front of you, or the project, or your teacher's lecture. We want our students to be engaged, and we have spent a lot of time talking about those pieces. You can see the why. We talk about, our universal screener. It is required at the beginning of the year, but a lot of that is based on our requirements from KSDE. And we are required to have a very strong tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And that is one of the pieces that I really wanted to strengthen this year going into the 24-25 school year, is making sure that those students who do need help, who do have gaps, who have skills that are lacking a little bit, that we make sure that we are taking the time to address those students, and we're providing professional development, as well as making sure that that time exists in the schedule. Down at the bottom, you can see the instructional materials and professional development for small group intervention and data tracking has been provided to all of our professionals, and we are working to use those tools, utilize them, have discussions about them, and that's a really big part of our early release time. Our early release has been a pretty good success so far. It has been used for mini PD opportunities where we do need to cover some of these pieces, but it is also used so that our teachers who do not have the opportunity to talk during the day can sit and talk about those students who might need to have some tier 2 or some tier 3 intervention so that the students are not being left behind. And that weekly opportunity really does provide us that opportunity. If you would look over to the right, that is strengthening PLCs, and that is where our early release work is right now, is in our PLC time. We are working to utilize time better to understand our student learning based on the formatives. Getting our teachers used to regularly using data to inform their decisions and instruction is what we are really focused on with our instructional coaches and with those pieces that are moving out from admin on down, in addition to using that time to work on our curriculum design maps. At the bottom, you can see we are continuing to provide regular professional development, and for instance, we are using one of those early release times here on September 18th to make sure that our entire district can get together. I was just talking with a teacher today who is excited because the last time we did this was last April, and she thought that that's exactly what it was going to be like again. We're going to see them again in April. We have 4 opportunities built into the schedule right now, and we're looking to add more as needed so that everyone can have a chance to talk to your vertical team. What is going on from 6th grade to 7th grade to 8th grade to 9th grade to 10th grade? What's going on in 4th, 5th, and 6th that's going to impact those people, and having those discussions about alignment, especially as we work on our curriculum design maps, looking at our balanced assessments, looking at our formatives as well as our summatives. Those conversations are able to be had, whereas before it was maybe a yearly thing and it was a very short period of time. So we're very lucky to be able to get to have those conversations, especially that they're built into the schedule. And the very, very first column is probably the column that is most needing information for you guys, just because you don't work with our framework. That is what we call our framework for student learning. It is where we have really focused in on John Hattie and his research. He has a meta-analysis of millions upon millions of students and how they actually learn, the outcomes, and it actually does show you what works best in classrooms, what is best practice. And we have kind of simmered that down into what works best for here in Tongi and how we can kind of use that as a tool to guide our work and our conversations with teachers within groups and from all other levels, from a teacher to a para, a teacher to a student, from admin to teachers, from district to anyone. The Tongi framework is focusing on the 10 this year, which is where we are focused on teaching our learning intentions, engagement in the classroom, and our needs assessment. Again, we're using John Hattie's, that's our why. We have focused in on those. We will continue to provide professional development and support for those 3, and then next year we will move into those last 3 letters, which would be the N, the G, and the I. Again, we are continuing to support teachers within their classrooms in terms of coaching that we provide in the minute alongside our teachers, as well as professional development opportunities, and pushing into things like their PLCs or any other opportunity that we have where we can provide some of that learning and those pieces that are needed for sustainability for these efforts. The guiding document that KSDE gave us, that was one of our pieces that I printed from our, let's see, it was in June, we had an admin retreat, and that was one of our guiding documents that was just released from KSDE at that time. One of my favorite things about that document is it is just kind of restating what we have been saying all along here in Tonganoxie, that there are some very important pieces you guys can see. You are to kind of choose one of those fundamentals and then as a focus move into the rainbow. There we are kind of, because we are really focused on instruction and professional development, we have kind of 2 in the rainbow category, and that is based on guidance from choosing our high quality materials as well as instruction and professional development. So those are the pieces that we are focusing on. Those are the pieces that we will continue to focus on this year. Like I said, if it's not obvious, it's not a thing. But the professional development that we have been providing so far this year has been directly aligned with this and will continue to be as the school year progresses. And with that, I'll say, does anybody have any questions about anything?
I think the only thing I would say, you know, Brandy and Tanya and I worked on how do you measure kind of the success of early release. And I think it's too early to take those measurements yet, but you know, we will have it's not a perfect or an easy thing to quantify, but we do have a cut at that we'll have in the near future in terms of how do we quantify success of early release. So.
I guess I would also take that when we talk about increased rigor and achievement, you know, how are we measuring that? Like, you're talking specifically about early release, but just overall student success and kind of elevating, how are we going to measure that?
A lot of that is where I talked a little bit about cognitive engagement and academic learning time, or ALT is what we kind of call it. We are looking at literally bell-to-bell teaching. What is going on in the classroom? Are we having our students doing things that are going to help them to grow and develop, or are we using our time to check our email, right? Like, we are literally tracking the behaviors of students and what those things look like as we go from classroom to classroom. What does it look like from the kindergarten all the way up to the 12th grade? The instructional coaches and myself do regular walkthroughs and kind of look at cognitive engagement, which is you are either writing, speaking, or doing or making. And if you aren't doing those three things, that's not cognitive engagement according to the description given to us. And so we are looking at those pieces and really saying, are you utilizing the materials, the resources that we have purchased for you? Are you utilizing Kagan opportunities to get your students talking to one another? We know that a teacher can give a really great lecture up here at the front for 45 minutes, but what do the students actually get from that? Just talking with our teachers about saying, hey, every 10 minutes, use 2 minutes to have your students chunk and chew that information and show their neighbor how they understood that, or discuss with the teacher as a group how we can jigsaw this together, and moving the needle as we go, just making sure that we are not having a lot of downtime in classrooms, making sure that we are making the right choices with our resources, our materials, and our instruction. We really only have control over time, materials, grouping, and instruction. Those are the 4 pieces that we have. We don't have anything outside of that. The kids are our kids. We're going to give them everything we've got, and we just need to make sure that we are making the right choices, those best practices. So talking with teachers about the proper use of time, things like that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brandy.
Thank you.
4.3, Mitch.
So just kind of coming here tonight to update you guys. Obviously, we met a couple weeks ago on some of our long-term project planning. I know district leadership feels an immense amount of desire to continue to keep the ball rolling on these things and not let something fall through the cracks here. So, you know, I could see this being a thing. So I don't have a whole lot, but just a couple things to update on where we're at project-wise. And as always, if you got a question, just wave me down here. TPAC roof, the existing high school roof that we're going to finish, is probably still about 2 weeks out from start. They contracted 41 working days in there, so that keeps us in the window we asked for. Probably have a pre-construction meeting later this week or early next week to kind of talk about details there, but everything good on that front. Before I forget, we finally did get to a resolution on the gym floor over here with Great American Flooring to get a new gym floor put in. So they're about a month out on materials right now, but I'll have to drill down with the rec commission and kind of figure out a timeline on when they want to do that. But we just kind of here in the last 2 or 3 days, working days, have come to that conclusion, so that hopefully will be done, and we'll get that floor replaced. Kind of a win for us. So moving on to some of the other stuff, we will start to proceed with the pre-bid and pre-construction of the TMS, the middle school roof, kind of like we talked about. Be very similar to the process we've gone through here. The Garland Company will take care of the construction documents, design, architectural piece of it, and then we'll go out to bid again on the installation of an extremely, if not same for same, type of roof that we'll put on up here that carries the 30-year warranty. The exact same process we've gone through to get to the point here. So we will begin that, probably do pre-bid in October with the expectation to have that done next summer. So kind of getting out in front of it now is going to be advantageous to us just as far as timeline goes, and making sure that we're on the docket for next summer and we're not getting pushed off of there. So I will probably come back, probably not October, but probably November would be my guess on some sort of actual hard figure approval line item for that. So that's the roof. I'll bounce around here. We are also going to just proceed with asphalt bid on the TMS parking lot back there, just outside of the TMS gym, between the two gyms. The plan there is to, obviously we're just going to tear out what's there and put an all new asphalt base in. Same type of deal, thicker perimeter for bus traffic, and then just a standard install. And again, that I could see being more of a December, January project as far as your guys' radar goes, when we try to come with numbers for that. And as we start to get some of that numbers and get a feel for where we're at budget wise, I think we'll continue to communicate through this process. But I would see trying to put that out to bid and having a firm number by December or January, again, so we can have the work completed over the summer with no hiccups timeline wise. In that process too, I think we will ask these contractors to look at a potential parking lot on the west side out here. Whether we want to proceed with that or not, I think is probably still to be determined, but I do feel the urgency to get a better structure for our buses to park and be charged and heated in the winter. So we'll probably try to do those similarly, but also that can, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but maybe not proceed with that one, but start getting an idea if that's something we want to tackle as well. So the parking lots will kind of go hand in hand, with the bigger emphasis being on replacing that lot behind the elementary school between the middle school. The two big ones that we kind of talked about in depth, the HVAC at the middle school and elementary school. Lauren contacted one of our former contacts at DLR and Amber Beverland and got a recommendation on a independent mechanical engineer to come in and meet with us. This is not a DLR group person. This is not a salesperson. This isn't anybody that's trying to sell us anything. This is just an independent mechanical contractor, Smith & Boucher, to dive into our buildings out there and just kind of a up top overlay. We obviously discussed the middle school. Everybody's conversations with me are very similar there. Hey, does what you have perform? Is the building cool? Does it heat? Is the humidity okay? And the answer is yes there, but they're going to dive into it a little bit and just check roof loads and kind of put their eyes on the middle school to confirm what I think we know. But per your request, we'll have them take a look at that. That one's pretty simple. Flipping over to the elementary, per that conversation, they are going to kind of phase a project for us. I think Lauren's probably shared with you a little bit of what just they kind of laid out. But the biggest ask we had for them was we kind of need to know what our options are first and foremost. And so in their research and, whether it be on coming out and taking a look and then getting some drawings and plans from us, their team's going to review that. And basically our ask was, tell us what our options are. Tell us the cost effectiveness of the options. Tell us if it's you know, if we're going to go down the road of a $10 million project, you know, obviously we're not going to waste a ton of time on that. But we definitely talked through a lot of options from what would rooftop units look like? What would a split system look like? What's a VRF replacement? And again, structural engineering comes into play there. Timeline comes into play. And we talked through all this. And their scope and their recommendation is basically going to phase one and say, this is what your options are. If you were to put rooftop units on the roof up here, this is what it would take, and give us a general finance piece to that, a timeline piece to that, and then also to understand what the infrastructure of the building, how that would get affected, because it would change quite a bit. And then do the same thing for a split system. What does an updated VRF look like? Do we have, some sort of point of reference there that we might feel comfortable with that option? So I think their plan in this is to just give us our options in a financial timeline and just common sense practice of what could possibly happen at the elementary school. That's going to be step one for us. I think once we have that information, then step two will be to drill down on what our option is going to be, what we want to go with. And we can probably compare and contrast the top two, but they are capable of engineering this project for us, providing shop drawings, doing the project management piece from that engineering level, if we or so choose to move to phase two, phase three of this thing. But right now, the ask of these guys is just to provide us with the options of what we can do over there. We talked through some things, but obviously, we want some sureties there. And so that's kind of what you have in that document to provide us with a formalized report for what our options are. So just kind of where it sits, again, I think the middle school is probably a pretty straightforward project, but they are going to confirm that for us. And then depending on that confirmation, we may be talking about that replacement in the next 2 to 3 months. There probably is a timeline on that there's about a 20 to 22 week lead time for most our manufacturers right now. So to do that project, we would probably for certain need to have something in place by the end of the year. The elementary school, I think the desire is obviously to take our time and work through this and do it correctly and make sure we're getting the product we want. I don't feel any sort of urgency to do either one of those HVAC projects next summer. I don't think the district in either building is in a spot where we are like hemorrhaging by any means. So I think we're just going to continue down this road and kind of see where the time leads us. And if it can happen next summer, great. If it doesn't, I don't feel like we're putting ourselves, our students, or anybody in the community in a bad spot if we don't move forward immediately with these things. So that is kind of the HVAC. Questions on that? I know that was a lot.
I don't think Lauren sent out the letter, but
Okay.
they were proposing $8,000.
Yes, yep. So yeah, it's basically $8,000 to do this phase one project of the research on the building and do that, and then stop there, take that information, take that report, then we can choose to move to phase two with this. I think we can seek a second opinion if we want to, but I do feel pretty good about at least this just giving us a jumping off point, because right now I'm not sure we have one other than just kind of chasing our tail down a couple places. I think this will eliminate a couple things and give us the maybe 2 to 3 options we can move forward with and kind of come back to that. So that covers, my understanding is that covers both buildings. That'll be the research and diagnosis on elementary and middle school. So.
The thing I would say is, talking to Amber, we had never met this company, and she highly recommended them because they had experience in other schools with similar situations as ours, and they brought it to us. It was pretty evident to both Mitch and I that they, as the term that I got from Justin was, think outside the box. Yeah. And they just weren't coming in and saying, well, we just want to replace the VRFs with a 5th generation VRF. It wasn't like that at all. It was, no, there's some other options that we need to look at that might be more cost effective and, just have a different design.
I think,
and so that's
for certain, the conversation with these gentlemen, we've obviously got some major manufacturers bidding our middle school right now, and just in kind of one-off conversations with them, I am going to be extremely passionate about not moving forward with a VRF in this project. Now, I could certainly be talked out of it and things of that nature, and I'm just the guy standing up here, but I've yet to meet somebody that's like, oh yeah, that's swell. Even the new ones are great. They all speak very poorly of them, so that's just my 2 cents for that.
Including this group.
Yes, so I think everybody in here doesn't have to be convinced of that. So I think that is kind of the direction we are looking for, is that creativity to what else can we do that is not a rip this building down and start over sort of thing, or pay half of what we already paid for the building sort of thing. So definitely some creativity to be had there, but feel pretty good about where that's at. So, and then finally, the only other big one that we haven't brought up is the multipurpose field, and just kind of an update on that. We are really playing with the location of that, and so where we had kind of originally designed it, they've looked some other places. I think the goal is to get it behind the elementary school someplace, whether it's immediately behind the playground or up on the hill where we had talked about the maintenance building at one point. They've identified both of those as feasible plots. They did say up on the hill is actually going to be quite a bit cheaper, as to not. There's a lot of drainage work down on the playground and on the backside of the elementary that I think is pretty terrifying for them as far as digging up and getting into the ground there. There's just a lot of outlets on, even out on the soccer fields behind the playground that they would have to contest with. So kind of what we've decided there is we're going to pinpoint the location that we like the best. And talking to administration, both at the middle school, elementary school, obviously it impacts the high school a little bit too, but just district-wide, finding the location we want, and then being able to kind of do this as a whole thing, but in a phased project. So potentially maybe just the track and field go in 1 year, and then potentially bleachers, restroom facility, gate facility, but being able to provide this company with a layout of what we need as a district, and then having them come back with a final design piece at some point in time. That could be phased, that could be taken on all at once, again, whether it's lights, sidewalk, infrastructure, whatever that is. But I think right now we're just in the process of hammering down on that location that we think works best for us as a district. And I think that's the biggest key here, is this isn't just a middle school grab. This is something that I think we're involving everybody in, and they're committed to helping us do that and laying this out for us. And like I said, this is similar kind of situation. I feel very comfortable when we're getting a turnkey look at this thing from one company that can be, responsible through multiple phases of this project, and that can also be held liable for, any hiccups that may happen along the way. And then obviously when we get to the point of actually doing this, I think we'll take this information to a couple different companies and get a bid put together. But, we're just kind of working hand in hand right now to get this design piece put together and try to get, again, same thing I said when I got up here, just to continue moving the ball and making sure we've got information that we need and that you guys need to make the decision. So that is where that is at. And that's all I have to say about
to
that.
kind of reiterate, I know there's not an action item, but Mitch is going to be moving forward on the middle school roof. Well, first of all, we have T-back.
Yep,
this
T-backs.
fall. Then the middle school roof, we're trying to target next summer, 2025, and if we can, the parking lot this summer of 2025, and then as far as the rest of it, it's up in the air,
Yep, just kind of see where it falls.
and that's our target.
So regarding the engineering for the HVACs, I don't think there's any board action required for that. It's within Mr. Feldkamp's spending authority. I guess unless there's any major heartache from the board, that would move forward. The only other thing I had was, are you gonna come to us next month with the caulking of those precast panels?
Yeah. I actually talked to them about that today, and so we'll get an official, a contracted number on that. It'll happen in the middle of this project, but
Okay.
that is correct. We got a loose number, but we'll make sure it's something that's contracted here for the next board meeting.
Okay. Any other comments, questions for Mitch? Thank you, sir.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign, motion carried unanimously. Moving into, no patron comments, I assume? Okay. Superintendent's report.
Okay, mine's pretty short. I'm actually going to do a little combination of my Board of Education report and just delve a little bit into my Friday update on September 6th. So the first one is the continuation of conversation with city officials, with the Washington Street, E Street project. And after talking to Mr. Brakovich at least 3 times in the last week, they had their budget meeting Wednesday night, and they still included the possibility of the funding for that intersection, straightening, but it's complicated because you have some outside sources that are also involved in that process, and he couldn't speak to where they were with all of that. And of course, our situation with trying to include or commit to that amount of money, we're not there yet. And so George, they understand that, but I think the thing that George kind of wanted the board to hear is they really appreciate the conversation that's been going on for the last 6 weeks. It's probably the best conversations we've had in collaboration, since I've been here. So that's really where we're at. There's nothing to move forward on at this point. Ryan, you've asked me about it, I know, and Justin and I have talked about it quite a bit.
Did we do any more about I think it's a great opportunity for the 2 entities to collaborate, but there was the legality things. I don't know if anything more is developed.
So
about
the
that.
only very high level, Jim, I talked to Angie Stahlbaumer again in person and told her more about what the project was, in that it was on our property, which changed her full philosophy. She thought it was a combination of county, city, and school district, making that intersection straight, which she wasn't on board with. But as long as it's on our property, it's up to us. So she was a lot clearer. I don't have that in writing. I just didn't pursue it that hard, but we did visit. And then Dustin Avey with Piper's Handler also told me verbally that those funds can be used on your property, the contingency funds. So that's what I have. Couple of other just highlights that I think are important. Just side note is the Tonganoxie High School FBLA is going to be hosting the Tonganoxie Business Association on Friday, October 11th. It's going to be a little opportunity for the students to kind of show off their the coffee shop or school store is kind of the plan there, but we're going to host a meeting right there in the cafeteria, and so hopefully we're going to invite as many of the local businesses to come in and put their eyes, on our facilities. So we're looking forward to that. I just want to mention, and I mentioned it in my Friday report, that Grandparents' Day has become huge. And when you have 960 kids in one building, the logistics of getting people there, because there's no place to park. There's no place to park for grandparents. And so we were shuttling grandparents from over at West Haven, and oh my Lord, and it's just a lot. And so we split it into 2 days. They're evaluating that as everybody. We appreciate the grandparents, especially the Grandparents' Day, but it's big. I mean, how many? They have 1,200. What was it? 1,200 grandparents?
I think so.
I think that's the number I heard. Just imagine that over 2 days, and you can't even get them in the classrooms. Otherwise, they're going to stand the entire time. So we want to make it better. So there's a lot of discussion internally. Is that the best way to put it? Okay. And then transportation. I put this in my Friday report. We are so pleased that we are making progress on hiring new drivers. And we probably have almost like 3 that are in training. We had 1 start last week, 1 start today, drove for the first time. Have others that are waiting on either CDL, passing their CDL, or health exams, or whatever else goes on. So it's encouraging. Now, And so talking to Jill, you know, there's a lot of moving parts here, but we're hoping, number one, to shorten some of those longer trips. And then it would be wonderful at some point if we could address the AB bus routes. You know, that's all in our planning, but we're not there yet. I also want to take this moment to thank Becky Drzinski for helping us out in a huge pinch. You drove for probably 2 weeks, and that was not in the plan at all. And we actually had a driver in training basically not show up the day before. I mean, we were supposed to have them drive the route. They didn't show up the day before school started. And Becky, who had been a driver a couple of years ago and of course has a full-time job here, but she stepped in and helped us out in a huge pinch. And so we appreciate what she's done. I mean, it was big to keep the buses rolling. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Tanya?
All right, got an update on the strategic plan. I was hoping to have it printed for you this evening, but we received the early draft or the first initial draft last week, and we got that all looked over, and we sent in some corrections last week on the 5th. We should be getting the final draft sent back to us within a few days. We really didn't have very many changes. There were a couple of pictures and then a few tweaks on some wording. So we should have that back soon. We're getting some booklets and some of the one-pager professionally printed, so you'll have those hopefully at your place by the next meeting. And then we will have the file so that we can print those in-house also. And so we're really excited for you to see it. It's been a long time coming, and we are more than ready to have that in your hands. All right, HR systems. We have been working through several pieces. First of the moving parts is the professional piece, the professional growth piece, where we house the evaluation system. On Friday, September 6th, we were supposed to have, I thought it was supposed to be the training, but it was actually more of the internal setup piece. There's a lot of moving parts on the inside, so we had some of that setup training. I have another further call on that on Thursday to finish setting that piece up, and then we'll be trained. I'll be trained, and then I can train the rest of our evaluators and evaluees. Then in October, we'll begin working on the Frontline Central HR systems and the recruit and hire piece. That was delayed because we didn't need that right away. This is not our prime time for recruiting and hiring, so that was delayed to October so that we could get that set up appropriately and then have it ready to roll for recruiting and hiring season, really after the first of the year. So that's in the works. And then on number 3, HR training, I've just put some of the different trainings that I've either already gone through or will go through in the near future. So I completed the PHCLE training, and then the certification exam will be in November. I've had the Title IX training, employment law basics seminar. I have the 504 and SPED training tomorrow. In October, I have HR employment seminar, and then I have Human Resources Academy and Legal Essentials. Those are to be determined. They're in the KASB system where you can take that training on your own at your own time, on your own pace. So as soon as things settle down here pretty soon, then I'll roll those trainings in and complete those as well. That's all I have for you.
No, enrollment.
Oh, enrollment. Oh, yes, right. Enrollment numbers. These are preliminary numbers. So just keep in mind, this is a very high level. I ran this on Thursday, and in fact, we lost one at the high school and gained 2 at
Middle school.
Yeah, middle school. I had 2 middle and then 1 elementary. So numbers are still changing drastically. This does not also include the virtual information. So all those students, I just received that file this afternoon, so I'll get all of those coded and in. The official count day is September 20th. So that's when you take the snapshot, and then you have through the first part of October to make sure that data is correct, and then that'll be finalized. So by the next board meeting, I'll have the the final numbers that will impact our funding. So as you can see, I pulled out pre-K. They're just a little bit unusual in how those students are counted. So if you look at K through 5 for our total TES, we are up 24 students at the elementary. Then for the middle school, grades 6 through 8, we are up 10. And then at the high school, we are down 1. So overall, just K through 12, we're up 33, which is great. Pre-K, those students are counted a little bit differently. The students who are in our 3 and 4-year-old at-risk program and our 3 and 4-year-old students who receive special education are counted at 0.5. So that means they're counted as a half a kid. So if we have 10 of those kids, we count 5. And so that is part of that 73 number. That 73 number also includes those students who receive itinerant services. Maybe they're in a daycare or preschool from home and they receive special education services through us. It also includes the parents as teachers students. They're not really funded. They count just a little bit, but just a very brief amount. The parents as teachers program that we have is actually through Keystone. So the bulk of that parents as teachers funding goes to them there, and then we just have the students under our enrollment. So if you look at those students there, we've gained 18, but that number will drastically change and it will be affected by our weightings. So it's almost like you just don't want to count them until after the 20th, really. So that's what we've got so far on our very high level, very early enrollment picture.
So to make sure that I'm looking at this the right way, so 3rd grade, 167 kids, up 39, but really that same group of kids, they were
Right, year before.
they were at 154 last year. So if you look at 2nd grade the year
Yes.
before, so they're still up 13, but they're not up 39. So if you want to look
That grade level.
that group for group, you'd look the year before.
Right, right.
Or the grade before.
Yes.
Yes, and really what we were just looking at, this was for our head count, like a per building, so we weren't looking at that, year before count of those exact students. We were just looking at the grade level just specifically.
There's still some pretty big jumps though. Like if you look at kindergarten last year to 1st grade this year, I mean that's
significant.
almost 15 kids, 13 kids.
That was the one that caught us off guard last year was 119 when we were averaging, well, maybe not 3 years earlier, but 141, 154, then drop back to 119. That was, we weren't expecting that.
Okay.
And we do have data that shows those cohort groups, but just not in this preliminary head count.
The other good news, I guess, is our demographic study is fairly accurate. I mean, compared on this is what they're projecting, that we're going to grow in numbers at the elementary school over the next several years. And, the question is staffing, because then we'll have to adjust by grade level and need and everything else. So we're anticipating that we're going to be hiring additional teachers next year.
All right, anything else for Lauren or Tanya? All right, so let's move into the action items. Do I have a motion to approve item 8.1, approval of additional bills?
I make a motion to approve item 8.1, approval of additional bills.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign, motion carried unanimously. All right, so item 8.2, so this is the resolution to approve the local option budget. We have been at and continue to be at the state average, so we're not above that, but we will be at the state average. So I would, and that is reflective in our overall budget. So I would move that we approve item 8.2, approval of supplemental general fund percentage as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign, motion carried unanimously. All right, and then item 8.3, that's the full budget. The code 99 is included there. We need to be sure and highlight that the needs assessments from the buildings were provided, evaluated, and the board used them along with the state assessment review in the budget development process. So is there any discussion on the budget? I would move that we approve item 8.3, approval of the 2024-2025 budget as presented. Is there a second? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried unanimously. I don't think there's any executive session.
No.
Are there any board discussion topics?
Well, I guess for the benefit of the rest of the board, I just need to let, I'm resigning as of tonight. We're relocating out of town, and so this will be my last meeting. So it's been a pleasure, but anyway.
Well, we certainly appreciate your service, and we will work on the process to replace Mr. Bothwell on the board. So thank you for your service. Any other discussion? Meeting is adjourned.